Alright, everyone, welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the Oath of Concealment solo campaign. I have got everything ready. Now, for apologies, everyone, that if you hear too much paper rustling, apologies. You'll just have to get used to it because I have a lot of stuff on my desk. So, that being said, we have a lot of stuff under control. Let's begin. The episode starts where our main character reveals himself as Garrett Windstrike. As his full name, he says, "No, don't worry, sir. I've gotten my name from my mother's side of the family. You know, Dragon, of course." As revealed that Garrett, his appearance, of course, being that he is a ragged slave. One in which, apart from any slave, is by far one of the few dragonborns. Well, only the gray color for all it's worth. And in his time, he was a fighter, one gifted as a knighthood during his time in the kingdom of Taurus, as originally that his parents had attended before. His father, of course, being a knight as well. Of course, taking that as his father's side of the family, that he too became a knight. Garrett speaks to a young man during the slave's reconstruction of the kingdom of Taurus, as affected daily of destruction caused of many creatures. "You know," said the man next to Garrett, "do you know exactly why the land is called Sonark to begin with?" The man began to walk across the fields of sand and a little bit of tufts of gray grass and all such. Let me remind you that, interestingly enough, Sonark is Kronos, backwards, named after the destructive Titan god in Greek mythology. It is said that Kronos had eaten his children, but of course he had thrown them up under the influence of gods, or the leader of the Olympians. But in our time being, that name was of course referred of many, Kronos being that of the destruction god, one in which, over a course of nearly 1,000 years, had this destructive, strange, draconic-like being. Many people refer to this creature as a Terraskew, a god of pure destruction. Heck, it wasn't even called a god. It just was the god's swallower, one in which had even the gods had feared of this creature and how it had brought devastation to our land to begin with. Garrett couldn't believe his ears. 1,000 years, he had imagined. Very long. It had been more than at least 1,000 years during that destruction. Many people have to gather as much of reinforcements. Stone, wood, everything. All the construction of even the merchants couldn't fix, or any of them. Resources were scarce, especially during that of few hundred years, during the reign of the era of magic, they so call. The era of magic was held under the influence of many. There were wizards, in which had controlled this magic, in an attempt of protecting those of many throughout the land. The magic had protected and warded off the so-called Lord Boulder, the god of destruction, using this magic in means of frightening him away, scaring him. Of course, many Terraskews cannot be scared, but one in which can be ultimately terrified of such magic. Boulder was not as much of a very old Terraskew during the 1,000 years, but as the 1,000 years have progressed, many people have feared that Lord Boulder would be old enough to see past the magic and be brave to stand against its path. But not in the course of many 1,000 years. That Lord Boulder just stood his ground. "It appears that even as we're unaffected," said the man in the slave work. "We knew one day, of course, that Lord Boulder was not the most biggest of our problems." Garrett thought to himself, yeah, Lord Boulder wasn't the only threat. There were others out there. Garrett could look beyond the horizon, but not too far. Sonark was a big and expansive world, and yet there are dangers that linger out there. ones in which they too wield magic by force, means of conquest rather than protecting individuals. They rather use it for ambition, even the dark draconic lord, Venet, one of the most ambitious dragons on the land of Sonark that they have ever laid eyes on. Garrett have known of this tale especially from his mother's words, well, at such a young age. Said that Lord Venet, in many of draconic history, was a dragon in which was corrupted in his ambition, corrupted in his power, using the wizard magic for himself, using it to control all. He wanted to conquer the regions, using that power, corrupting anyone who stands against him. At least that's what the legends have said. But of course, the magic turned against him. The wizards imprisoned him with the magic, preventing him from harming them. The magic, of course, however, had to be separated, where the magic were held in pedestals, the Tengoms, 3 of them separated in regions throughout the entire land of Sonark. These pedestals had bound the magic to imprison the dragon Venet, bounding him to the center of Sonark. A magic so powerful he had been encaged in it, never to strike fear again. But even as such, Venet didn't always need strength to get his way. Garrett had spoken to many slaves. They said that Venet has, in some way, seduced a few people, in some way spoken soft words, seduction, if you might, controlling them like children of his own, apprentices, using them as his soldiers. Even as he is bound to the cage, his words could not be stopped. And Garrett still worked in the slave fields in means of reconstructing the kingdom of Taurus again. This destruction of Taurus, physically over for each and every year, was under the influence, of course, of the dark forces of the soldiers. Of course, the Queen Ursula, had addressed that there had been some mishaps during their construction. A villain that they have interfered with for many rare occasions. His name was Xander. Garrett couldn't recognize who he was. No one did. Xander was a stranger to many. But his means of trying to attack a fleet, his appearance was never seen. No one didn't know what he looked like. All they know is that his name had been mentioned by people that were served under his orders. Garrett didn't really understand as who they were, since that Garrett was hired under his influence of being a slave. Garrett's body was found in the midst of a forest, suspiciously in means of trying to find a creature, one in which he wanted to avenge in an attempt for his parents. That, or he just wanted to be heroic for once. Of course, his heroic standards outwitted him. And of course, he had fell unconscious, his body found and dragged here with the many other slaves in means of constructing the kingdom. Garrett would do anything to try and use his breath, but he was weak, very weak. They had suffered him through immense pain and not even fed him. All of his weapons and inventory alike, as what I have on the character sheet, are all cleared and empty. He was nothing but a weak little man. He had no weapons of any kind. All he had was just his breath weapon left within his power. Sad enough that he didn't have the chance of using it. However, as the council had held under power of influence, the slaves were let back inside the castle's grounds. Well, how odd, said the slave. Strange that they're letting us inside over more than a few months. Never in any way had we done this over the months of passing by. It had been that during that of the months, of course, that even for years, there had been a new coronation for some time. Queen Ursula was coronated almost as much as an entire year, probably 3. Garrett couldn't keep track as to how many years she had been coronated since beforehand, but she has been queen indeed for more than 3 to 5 years. They were led into the kingdom, even at such an old age, over the 5 years of being the queen of this liege, and the queen of the kingdom of Taurus. Queen Ursula stood there. Her appearance was, of course, a strange, human-like person. She looked human, at least what Garrett saw. Her humanoid appearance, of course, looked very unusual to him, out of anyone else he had seen, that her appearance was more orange, with little tufts of brown on certain places. This was mainly on all of her body, all except, of course, for the center of her face. However, the sides, almost like a beard, were colored in different ways, different shades, like a sunset. Very little different tints of orange, white, and brown in some very obscure places. Not that she looked in some way ugly, but Garrett knew that this was a way of fashion. People didn't mind what she looked like. She was, above all, very remarkable and very beautiful in her way. She spoke in a very calm and yet loud voice for all to hear in the great hall. Slaves, for I have held everyone here, as of course, apart from the knighthood, must I select someone to be coordinated as my new king, a new liege over the months of passing by, one that will be by my side at all times, one that will make my decisions and will rule as the true heir and the king, the one that I shall be married to. Eventually silence erupted the hall, but there was some murmuring amongst many. The slaves were confused, even Garrett himself. Garrett looked around many of the knights. Of course, Garrett had suffered, like the other slaves, the hot temperatures, for he had suffered immense heat. Of course, his mother's side was a little confusing. He didn't understand what her breath weapon was. He must have forgotten. He had forgotten many things, but this was probably an event he could remember in some way. He'll never forget any of the slave work he had done now. He had been a slave for nearly as much as, you could say, 8, 10 months. He didn't know. Time worked pretty different when it came to Sonark, especially within empty, deserted fields where the slaves had worked in. Queen Ursula had made her decision eventually when the guards had spoken. The queen will make her decision soon enough. She will select an individual, one that will be her heir. Queen Ursula pointed to Garrett. Me, Garrett spoke in a questionable tone. Why me do you point to? Why in any way would me or any of us slaves be worthy to be with you? After how you've treated us? Queen Ursula had responded slowly. Because you have been found in the forests of the Scorched Forest. The Scorched Woods are of a mere home to our threat, ones in which have brought the destruction here to our doorstep over many periods of time. Said that we have wielded an individual, one in which they will seek avenge of their leader, Xander, the undead king. Garrett didn't know what he was. Of course, Xander was expressed as the undead overlord, but he wasn't the strongest. They said that, as an undead overlord, he didn't really much as use magic, but he did wield those in which he had full control of soldiers, some of which say that by magic he had controlled them, not just by words. He used them by force if he had to, which is what had happened here. Garrett slowly walked forward. No one responded. Well, all except for the queen. Garrett said in his words, "My queen, why in any way do you choose me?" Queen Ursula said, "Because you were a fighter in which we had found your corpse next to this region, one in which many people have been cindered by flames, burned in ash. Your body was clean. They had not touched it, nor burned it, nor scorched it in dust. For we were interested of what you have done, and how you have arrived, and by all means, why." Of course, Garrett just made a side glance and was still yet confused. But of course, that's for what happens next in line. All right then. Suddenly the soldiers had felt the rumbling, one in which an army is about to approach to their doorsteps. Nearly as many as 5 soldiers were almost killed during this fleet. The fleet almost shook the entire ground entirely. scaring and frightening many. "What's going on?" the queen yelled in her tone. Many people were running, screaming in their fright. "It appears that the fire serpents are attacking into our fleet, into our doorstep," said the guards. Garrett looked behind him, and as he did, he saw that there were indeed the fire serpents, those of the soldiers under the influence of Xander himself. They were trying to break loose into their power, ready to strike fear to many. There were bound to be nearly as much as... Shoot, drop that to the ground. I wonder what I rolled. Oh, for Pete's sake, I rolled a natural 4 on that. There are bound to be nearly as many as 4, in some way. 4 fire serpents, separated across the grounds. Terrified, it is time that Garrett must take quick action in what he does next. Let's see who goes first, though. Never mind, I fail. The fire serpents go first. Well, actually, that depends. No, it's first. Yeah. Doesn't matter. So, okay, I was saying that there was... Okay. We first start, of course, with the creatures, since they have rolled the highest. Now let us begin shortly. That is a 6, plus 1 is a 7. That does not hit. For now, it is, of course, others that will also have to... Okay, that is an 8, plus 1 is 9. That is a 4. What about the other one? Oh, that definitely is. Also, I'm going to have to pull this out. I'm going to pull that out. That's going to be that little thing. Creature will perform bite attack, which is a 1d4. Let's see that. Ew, look at that. That is a natural 4 right there. That's 5. Yeah, that's 5. Okay, that's 5 piercing damage against the player. Fire damage as well. So I'm glad I pulled that out. So I just sure hope this doesn't... Oh, freak. That's 8 damage. Freak me. Okay. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna lead me down to 3. And I pulled one of the little caps out, since that I had taken nearly as much as fire damage. So I took fire damage, basically that's what it is. Oh, it's my turn, I forgot about that. Let's see if I roll. Okay, I rolled a 9, plus 3. Does that hit? It doesn't really. I don't really do much. Okay, okay, and then of course, as you see that through the posts of the kingdom itself momentarily, well, it appears that the towers, few of them in which were still stable. Atop of those towers are guards, ones in which they pull out weapons. Weapons in which are tipped with arrows full of, I don't know, powder, sand? What appears to be water in some view. Okay, that's 14. And then there's a 9, which definitely does not hit. Okay, so there's only 3 towers in the area, one in which the fire snakes are approaching through. The towers, they fire their weapons, and as they do, it's going to be bam. Well, actually, no, sorry. My bad, everyone. Sorry. Wrong dice. Okay, it's going to be a 2d8 per of their damage. Okay, so this one is going to take 8 plus 6, which will be 14. 14 damage. So, oh, shoot. Frick. That's going to be 8, I think. Yes, I'm correct. It's left with 8. Okay, next up is the other creature. Okay, that also attacks as well. 8 plus 3, which will be 11. This creature takes 11 damage. Okay, and then last but not least, 7 plus 3 is 10. So that's going to be 10 damage. Okay, as for the other one, the snake in which has been punctured by the arrow, one in which has previously had attacked Garrett and surprisingly had dealt a lot of damage. Let's just make sure. Oh god, this ain't gonna go well, is it? Freak. Alright, well, one of them attacks. Okay, so that's gonna be... Well, actually, no. We're gonna count... Okay, so one of them attacks, because one of them, of course, being distracted by the puncture. Of course, the player will have to take... Not a natural. My god. Okay. You know what? We're gonna not do that. I think I kind of escalated. Alright, that's 7. You know what? I'm gonna roll again. See... Oh my god. Do something good. Thank you. Garrett, when strikes, performs the attack. He does hit. And as he does, he attacks the fire snake in which has eyes on him. So this will automatically drain his health to 1, as what the fire snake had done, and which he had committed. Let me see this. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so Garrett Windstrike will perform a breath attack in which he strengthens into his power. He uses all of his power in an attempt of using this breath attack. Fire... Oh, well, actually, Fire Snake doesn't roll, because that shall be... What is that? As a... Okay, so that's gonna be... That's gonna be 4 damage. I think double, because it's vulnerability, so I could say 8. Strange serpentine creatures. They're made of flammable substance, one in which they hold. So yeah, this creature officially takes 8 damage. This is the creature that dies. The fire snake evaporates into smoke. So basically, that's what it means. Oh, also, right, there you go. Next up would be the tower's turn. So, okay, that's going to be 10. I don't think that hits. 13. Okay, that hits. Only 2 towers. Well, actually 3. Wait, no, I rolled 3 times. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. Apologies. That's going to be 12 piercing damage. One of them... well, actually, no, this one will. So that's 12 damage. So that'll lead it down to 10. Perfect. And then, of course, the other creature taking... Oh, well, doesn't matter. It's dead. Only 2 remain. Oh, freak. Gotta be kidding me. Let's just say that the creatures managed to attack the other posts, weakening at least both of them because of how many times they rolled, which is basically what that means. So now, next up is going to be Garrett's turn again. Finally! Alright, Garrett rolls a 16, which definitely passes. Garrett will once again perform another breath attack, but of course, he can't use more of these anymore. So, that'll be another 2d6 damage. And this is a vulnerability, so I'm not counting it as a DC roll. Freak. Okay, that's pitiful. That's 6. Drains one of them to 5. Next up are the tower's turns. So, bam. So, okay, that's 12. Wow, okay, we'll take the 19. Only 1 tower is left remaining of the side. Well, actually, no, 2, because one of them is destroyed by the fire snake fleet. So, the tower will have to roll for the arrow damage that it'll inflict. So, I think, hold up, I'm doing this wrong. I'm so sorry, everyone. So that is going to be 11, which surprisingly kills. Actually, I said that there was another one, right? Okay, never mind. I rolled, I got a 5, and then I got a 1. So tower, the other one does not hit. But the other one did, and as it does manage to successfully kill the other snake. The other one, still alive, approaches to the tower in an attempt to kill him, which succeeds. That's an 18. I do not roll damage. Fire Snake successfully manages to destroy the tower. Well, not the tower. I keep saying that the towers are destroyed. The towers are not destroyed, but the guards standing on top of them are being burned to cinders and flames of the fire snakes. The snakes are trying to coils against them and trying to burn them into their serpentine body. Fire snakes, as I have mentioned before, are made of plasmic heat. They are evaporating with a non-physical form. They are made of pure flames. They are made of fire. And they will burn any creature that they tangle their serpentine bodies into. They do this in an attempt of doing that. So yes. The guards do die. So that leads to one tower. Garrett rolled an 18, which does succeed. Will use, I think, an unstriked attack. I think we're just going to have to see what that is. So I think an unarmed strike would be like a 1d6, 1d8? We're going to say 1d6 for one. So since that, Dragonborns, they're proficient in strength. Yeah, I'm correct. So we're going to see this. So 3 plus 3, that's going to be 6. Fire Snake does die. The guards, okay, so as the towers are, even though destroyed under the fire's element, Fire Snake was still in a range where Garrett had managed to defeat all of them at once in some particular way. So, Fire Snakes didn't actually go on top of, the towers, but, in some way, they kind of did a magical aura, one in which could permanently burn their corpses into cinders, which is what they had done. So, all 4 Fire Snakes are dead. Garrett, however, is at 1 life remaining. He is still severely wounded under his power. Queen Ursula wakes him up, and as this happens, as he wakes up, he does look around and see that everything around him is a little different than usual. He sees that he is, of course, in a hospital bed, nursed by Queen Ursula, and trying to help him. So he doesn't get wounded. He does take the fire damage. Well, yeah, 2 of them. 2 of the damage in which he had taken. So Garrett gets on his feet, and he says, "Where am I? What the heck is this place? Why'd you bring me into this kingdom?" Queen Ursula's like, "Because you're betrothed to me. Remember?" And Garrett's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I did." So, as he does look around, he does see that everyone is alive. Fire snakes do not do as much damage. And almost reading his mind in some way. Never mind, I'm wrong. Garrett asked the question, "Did anyone die?" And Queen Ursula said, "No. It was a simple fire snake fleet attack. Our archers, however, were of course severely killed under the fire's element, one in which had telepathically killed them in the process. Killed them, well, more like wound them in some way." And Garrett asks, "And as for the other guards and everyone?" And she says, "You had managed to use a breath weapon, one in which is their vulnerability. You have the breath of the cold, the ice power, this power that you bestow in your blood, in your ancestry. Can be used in means of defeating the fire demon's fleet." And Garrett, he made a confused face. He's like, "Wait, what? Wait, what do you mean by fire demon? There's more villains that we're dealing with? what's going on? And then Queen Ursula's like, yes, many people have dealt with how Xander is controlling these people under his influence. And it's not just some random people. He has wielded magic, one in which controls non-physical beings. Beings in which are a mockery to nature. And Garrett immediately knew this. And he's like, wait, so you're telling me that Xander is using the power of elemental chaos in means of conquesting against the entire land of Sonark? And she's like, well, yes and no. He is trying to wield stones, ones in which were forged under the power of the elemental chaos. The elemental planes, they were ultimately furious when the stones were scattered by the wizard magic. The stones had to be separated by individuals, ones in which they had to be away from the elemental planes, so that Xander would not wield them as easily as you could hope. And, of course, during that of the time being, we have to find any means necessary of trying to hunt Xander down. Many people are unaware as to why he's doing this, and why he's trying to conquest against our people. Garrett had no other choice but to oblige. He wanted to do something. He said in his voice, yes, I wish to help, but only on one condition. Hold up. If I am sent out there, I need someone to accompany me, if ever that I will suffer a terrible fate. Queen Ursula acted as if that we highly doubt that's going to be possible, like that's going to happen to you. But, of course, Garrett, he responded, I'm being serious. I need someone out there to help, to actually be alongside me. Of course, Queen Ursula was like, yes, I'm listening to you, and I will help you. I will hand over someone that might help you out. All you have to do is go to the close east dock, through the kingdom's territory itself voluntarily, through the side. There will be a man there. Well, half man. You'll find out eventually when you get there. I'm not really certain as to who he is, but he reminds himself as Drake. And Drake is, of course, a messenger for our people. No, not many people have laid eyes on him, of course, that is, so no one really knows what he looks like. But if you manage to bump into him, I will accompany him a message, one in which he will deliver the message to you in some way. All you have to do is go there and accompany him. And if not, perhaps, even along the way, you might find others to bring. Garrett's like, okay then I'll search through the kingdom and find who I can bring along. That I can do. And so Garrett does so, and as he does, he searches for a few people, most of them being, of course, the humans, elves, dwarves, something like that. A few of these people, of course, just walking and strolling along, like they don't mind, of their own business. Of course, some rare of them being, of course, half-orcs, for all it's worth. And then suddenly, he finds someone. He finds a gentle little creature, one in which is, of course, somewhat, as depicted in Ursula's words, one in which is not named Drake, but someone named Difference. One in which has wings, like a bird, like an angel, but doesn't look like one. Doesn't look as the brightest of angels. The wings are raggedy and brown. It's almost as if this humanoid creature also has strange bird-like talons, claws growing from both their hands and their toes. This young little girl, she is sitting on the ground like any other, of course of the citizens like many in the urban city of Taurus, and the streets filled within. She was one of the few many in which were sitting in alleyways sometimes, but she just sat there on the ground with nothing. Just an innocent being, a young girl, one in which she was curled into the ground. Almost, roughly, not as much as a few 20 years old or so. Her wings were curled around her in warmth, protected from anyone who wants to interfere with her, or ever to disturb her or harm her in any way. Garrett slowly approaches of this girl and says, "What is your name, little one?" He slowly approaches. But of course, all she did was The only thing she could do was just lash her claws at him, ultimately trying to have any attempt necessary of searing him. And he's like, I'm not going to hurt you. So just cut the nonsense. I do not wish to hurt you. I don't want to do anything. I just need you. I have a request that I want from you. Of course, the young little lady, she looked with her eyes beady, almost as much as either human or bird crossed between one another. He says in his deep words, I am trying to accompany someone by my side. Someone who could help me. I need someone who would help me out in case I am injured during a fight. Now I know that people like yourself do not enjoy combat or harm of any way, but all you have to do is just stand on the side. I just need someone to help. Can you do that for me? I might need someone helpful. Garrett tried anything he can to avoid the wings, avoiding contact with them. He made direct contact beautifully with her eyes. It's safe to say that she joins him. Garrett asks, what is your name, little one? As the lady stands up, she is in some way shorter than Garrett, but not as much. She tells Garrett, my name is Marita, and as you could tell by my ragged appearance, that I am a harpy. Garrett was surprised, of course, that within the material plane of Dungeons and Dragons, that most harpies are usually evil and empty-hearted, and that they only served as predators to any humanoid creature of any kind. Of course, Garrett said, strange. Most harpies are different. Why is it that you are different apart from them? And then, of course, Marita responds in some way. She says, because I have been raised by a human father and a harpy mother, she said. Garrett was even more surprised when hearing this, and he was like, of course, it was so obvious, but it's impossible. Harpies usually have their means of seducing a creature into their midst, leading them to their death, using a song, a lullaby, luring them with any means necessary. But it's just so strange that, of course, that even a man and, of course, a female harpy would actually have a child with each other, making Marita here beside him being a half-harpy, one born from one half to one half. Her wings, of course, still flapping in some slow motion, since that it was nighttime, that it was still cold. Eventually, he leads Marita inside a hut, where he'll have to wait until next morning. Of course, that being said, as that morning will have to pass until the next day, is, ladies and gentlemen, where the session will officially end. Alright, everyone, may I all remind you that, since that I'm going to put a little twist to this episode, I am going to, eat, drink, I'm going to eat, each a spoonful of hot sauce Tabasco for every fire damage my player takes, Garrett. So of course, previously, during this video, I've already, Garrett, of course, had already taken two different fire damage, attacks that have influenced him. This also counts as fire damage, so sadly, that still also inflicts. So, first dose will be, alright. Oh god, the freaking, ugh. Oh man, even if you smell it, it just makes the odor. Ugh, okay. Oh. Oh my god! Dude! Okay, that's one. Okay. 2. Yeah, I told you I regret this. Alright, 2. Ready? Go. Ah. Oh god, I hate Tabasco. Oh, this is the worst hot sauce. I know it's just 2, but like, it's Tabasco. Bro, it's strong. Like, this drops just make it already as strong as it is. I'm gonna drink a lot of liquids after this. Alright, that's it, everyone. Okay, now it's the end of the video. Goodbye, everyone. Oh, God.